Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach at Augsburg University, Derrin Lamker. Coach Lamker is going to talk to us about his time as a player back in 1993 to 1997 at Augsburg, some of the other roles that he had leading up into his coaching career, and then making his way back to Augsburg. And then we're also going to talk about the fact that they finished 6-4 this year, or last year in the MIAC, the MIAC. We're going to talk to him a little bit about what's going on with the conference. Remember, these interviews were done previously, so there's going to be a little bit of time that has overlapped. And don't forget, we are at the tail end of this long journey of a D3 season that we've had. It's a red wave going into Salem this weekend, Friday, North Central and Cortland. So obviously we're going to talk about that, talk about the games a little bit here in the overtime segment with Serenity Brown. If you're listening to us on Spotify or watching us on Spotify, listening to us on YouTube, we really appreciate you. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. And for all the people that have joined us this week on the Twitter page, there's other social medias. There's Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and the Twitter page, which is DingoTalk. The only one that's different is the Instagram page. It's Dingo_talk. Welcome to all of those that have joined us. But without further ado, Coach Lamker is here to tell his story.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach of Augsburg University, Derrin Lamker. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Yes, excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to do this the same way we do every week. I'm going to take you back in the time machine. We're going to talk about your playing days and your recruitment days and work our way through. I'm also interested, you're our second coach from the MIAC, so I'm interested to learn more about Minnesota football as we go down this journey. So how did you find yourself 22 minutes down the road at Augsburg as a high school senior?
Well, a couple things is I played three sports, basketball, football, baseball, and loved them all, and had some small Division II offers and small Division I walk-ons, and I just didn't want to give it up, any of them. And at that time, that was part of the decision that I could play all three at Augsburg, and I did for my first 3 years for all of them, and then football for my last year. So really enjoyed that part of it, and it was a great time. You know, I think being so close to home I enjoyed it. I don't like 7-hour bus rides if I don't have to. You know, at Division III is a different animal. You know, we are not scholarshiped, and those players are not. And so you're there because you love the game, and you're not getting any money for it. And it's just a really disciplined level, I believe, because we don't own these kids. They get to lift on their own. They have optional things, and they have to really dedicate themselves. And so it's a really cool situation. So I was there, played 4 years. It was great. My senior year, we won the MIAC title for only the first time in 63 years at Augsburg University in 1997. We went to the national playoffs and made it to the Elite Eight and got beat by Simpson College in Iowa. From there, I had a small stint in the Arena League as a quarterback. Got there for about one practice and figured out, you know what, these are pretty good athletes. It's time for me to become a gym teacher coach. So I got humbled real quick there. It was really fun as a gym teacher coach and high school football for a year. And then at age 24, I went back to Augsburg and became the offensive coordinator for 4 years. And I really learned football. You know, I really encourage all high school coaches and coaches to start out that it's important to coach younger levels in high school and youth and things like that. But if you're serious about football, go back and go college when you're not married, no kids, and you just have all the time in the world to learn from all these other great coaches who are there. At that time, I think there were 4 former head coaches on staff. And, you know, you don't like them all. You don't like all their ideas, but they all have something special to add. And if you can learn something from everybody and turn it into what you want to make of yourself and your so-called craft, as everybody says nowadays, right? And make it a good situation. That's what I did. Then I went to the high school ranks back for a couple of years, and I took a head high school job at an area high school called Osseo. I was there for about 9 years. We won some conference titles. And then in 2015, we won the state 6A, the big school title. It's kind of propelled me. Then I took a job at a school called Edina as an assistant. Head coach came about 6 months later for 3 years. And then my dream job opened up at Augsburg about 4 years ago. and got to come on over to the Augies and take over that head job. And it's been nothing but phenomenal since I've been here. Being an alumni, I took the program over about 3 years ago with COVID. They had 44 guys in the roster, and they were 1-10 for the first 2 years before we got there. And we got the roster up to 120 for camp this year. And we were 4-6 and 2 years of 6-4, 1-0 in the COVID year. So we're really excited to kind of get that program in the right trajectory and hopefully get the right recruits in and kind of battle with some of the powerhouses in the Midwest out here.
Now, Coach, is there a little bit more for you wearing the visor and the polo now for your alma mater? Why? So you got your players where you're bringing them in, but it's got to be kind of a wear on your sleeve because this is your alma mater. You're part of the last team that won a conference championship at Augsburg. Does that factor in? Is there a little bit more pride for you?
Well, there is pride. And the biggest thing is, I want our alumni, just like when I was an alumni, I want to open up the paper or online, whatever your choice is, to read and be proud of what you see. You're not going to win every game, but getting beat 55-0 and things like that just doesn't make you excited to be an alumni. But when you got to compete against some of the top teams and, your team has a chance to win every now and then, that just brings some more alumni and more people out and to have a lot of fun. And most all the alumni, almost all of them, they understand what my kids are going through. They know they're not getting paid. They're putting in these crazy hours, working, teaching, and doing stuff. Coaching and teaching and going to class, just doing whatever they can do to be part of this is a really cool thing.
Now, before we go any further, I got to ask you, you were pretty successful at the high school level. Why leave it? I mean, obviously the dream job opened up. It's your alma mater, but is that the main factor, or was it just more of a challenge?
Well, I think it was a challenge. And I'm going to say this in the right way. I felt like I was getting dumber by the day, teaching Fayette. I was doing the same things and it was getting repetitive, and I wanted a challenge, right? And there was challenge in high school, don't get me wrong, but just a different challenge in college, a little bit more X's and O's. And to be honest, I love teaching. It was 23 years of it, but now I'm in college and I still teach with the kids, but I don't teach class. And that was a big draw to me to be able to commit myself to these young men fully in the football realm and also part of their academic life. But, I'm not in the classroom anymore. And I was ready to be out of the classroom.
And then you said, 4 seasons, but obviously one of those years was the COVID year. What was that like taking over as that was kind of, because I watched a video when you first got the job, like everybody else, the campus is empty. It's kind of you walking with the news crew. And they were talking about how it's been 4 months, but you haven't been able to meet with your team yet. So, how was that process for you guys?
Well, and I think people are like, well, boy, that's tough on you. But everybody had the same thing, right? It wasn't just like our school or our conference. It was across the country. And so we all had to deal with that. And for me, as the first year, it actually gave me a chance to get to know some of my guys, through Zoom, through some workouts, or who was committed, who wasn't, and be able to, have a few kids step away and have a few kids that I really like to hang my hat on. So I had that part. It was fun. I enjoyed it for a little bit, not much. I wanted to be in person with these guys like anybody else. I remember I was on spring break with my daughter's spring break, her senior year. Sorry. And there was somebody that knocked at my door quick. I was on spring break with my daughter senior year. And we were doing Zoom with our football players for 3 lifts a week. And so at 6 a.m, I'd be down on the beach and I'd be on the Zoom trying to work out with them. And our strength and conditioning coach would be, everybody had to be at their apartments in their house, and that was kind of a thing of bonding, right? That was what you could do to get things done and keep yourself sane in that time that we all went through. And so, yeah, it was tough, but you got to make the best of it. And, it's worked out really well for us right now. And, hopefully going forward, we can try to get to the top of that conference. We've worked ourselves to the top 3, and hopefully we can knock the door for the next 2.
Well, so let's jump into this year, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Minnesota football. So you did work your way in to the top 3 in I believe it's the Skyline section of your guy, or the division of your guys' conference. And that's one of the things I don't think maybe a lot of people know is that there's 2 conferences within your conference, right?
Correct. Well, I think you guys got to look at it like the Big Ten. The Big Ten has East and West, right? Or North and South, or whatever they have, and go from there. And so what we have is we're same type of situation. We have 2 halves. and you play everybody from both sides, except there's one team that you don't play. And the top two teams from each side get to play week 10, and the winner wins the conference championship. Now, if you're in second place from this side and this side, you play for third place, and you work your way down. And what I love about it is it's some of the bottom teams, they get to play a like opponent week 10. Nothing worse than the last game of your college career if you're the worst team in the league and you got to play the best and you get blown by 60. Yeah. This way, at least they're competitive games. They're going against each other, and hopefully they can finish their season in a competitive game. Also, it makes week 10 for all the marbles for the top two teams, right? And what better than having that in a situation? It's like a college football playoff, basically, right? You got to win that game to get into the NCAA tournament. And so I think it's worked out great. This is the first year that our conference has not got two teams in the NCAA tournament. Usually that top team gets it, and then we had an automatic bid after that. So that didn't work out great for us, but in the last 3 years they have. So,
and Coach, don't worry, we are going to get to that because I think there was a lot of question mark about how that when the tournament bracket came out, a specific team from your conference that did not make it in. But so 6-4 this year. Talk to us about how you felt the 2023 season now that it's in the rear view. How did you feel about it?
Well, we took some good steps. I was happy about that part of it. Obviously, we wanted to beat the top two teams, and we didn't get to do that. St. John's and Bethel were the top two, and we lost to St. John's by 3 points in the last couple of minutes of the game. And so we felt we were very competitive. Then we weren't so competitive with Bethel. It was 30-7 or whatever that was. It just kind of went the other way on us. And so we would like to knock one of those two, but we ended up beating Gustavus, who ended up beating St. John. So you're in the talk, you're in the mix, you're getting close. And I've done it before. I was at Osseo, and we were terrible before I got there. It took us a lot of years to get this winning mentality. And that's what our kids got to get to. Like, I don't care if we're down 14 or up 14. We are going to play well, and in the end, we'll be successful. And you got to get that mentality going, and it takes a while, right? They were getting beat down at Augsburg for a lot of years there, and we're starting to turn that script now. And so everybody on our program is now part of ours that we've recruited. And so now, good or bad, we got to take that ownership, and those are our guys.
And Coach, over your coaching career, how has your philosophy changed?
Well, I think I was pretty, when I was younger, I was a guy that I didn't mind if somebody yelled at me, but I saw all my teammates kind of not crumble, but some of them would crumble when a coach would go crazy on them, right? And I always said, I'm not going to do that, right? I'm not even going to pick and choose the kids that couldn't get yelled at. I'm going to treat them with respect. I'm not going to yell and scream, okay? And I'm not going to swear at them, right? They're not there. Do you think he tried to drop the pass? Do you think he tried to miss the block? No, they're not. Come on. They're giving the best effort they can at times. Now, if you're screwing up mentally and doing 15-yarders and things like that, well, now we got to have a talk, right? Like, come on, what are we doing here? Right? Stuff like that. So I've always been very positive with our young men in high school, and the same thing in college. I'm not screaming at them, okay? Unless it's a complete mental 15-yard, something crazy, right? That's when we have to get after you a little bit. So I think that part's changed a little bit, but, also everybody wants to know why, right? Back in the day when I played, it was just because I said so. Okay. Nowadays, these kids, they need a little bit more. They need to know, why am I doing this? Oh, well, here's the theory behind it. Okay. And also teaching everybody the whole big picture, right? Everybody knows their position, but the really good ones know the whole big picture. And when you can do that, you become pretty educated and understand the football game. And so that's something that we've really changed, is trying to teach them everything and how it all equates into a football game. So, here's the deal. I can't stand when everybody tells me, well, kids are different nowadays. Well, of course they are. If you stuck an iPad and a cell phone in front of me and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, I'd be doing the exact same thing. And tell any of your parents, they would be too.
Yeah.
Take a look at my 80-year-old father and mother. When we're at home, they're on their phone more than I am, right? So look what's gone on. The technology and the choices and the options are so much more than they used to be. So kids, they've changed because they have more options. But deep down in heart, they just want to be treated right, have a great experience, and have some fun and go out there and try to compete. And so hopefully we can push the right buttons and get them to have a great experience.
And then on the other side of your philosophy, put us in the room, if you can, with when you're talking to a parent or a recruit. What's that conversation like? What are you looking for in the student athlete? And what are you hoping that they're looking for out of the program? minus the fact that obviously a guy got to be able to play football. I don't imagine you're going out and recruiting the nicest guy in the world. He's a real nice guy. It was great to talk to him. I don't know if he can tackle or he can throw a football or anything, but he's a great guy. I don't think that's a criteria. So,
well, and when I first started recruiting, we had low numbers, right? So, and I wasn't good at it right away. You know, I thought I was, but I wasn't. I was just trying to get everybody like, okay, this would be a great place, trying to tell them what they wanted to hear. Mm-hmm. And after about a month of that, I just stopped and said, hey, that's enough, right? Let's tell them exactly what we're about. We're a city school, right? We're in the middle of Minneapolis. We're not a cookie cutter. We're not going to be some beautiful school cut out of the woods if that's what you're looking for, right? Here's what we are. Here's what we can offer you. We can offer you a great education, an opportunity to play, right? Mm-hmm. I'll play a sixth grader from Kentucky if he's the best. I do not care, right? And I'll tell everybody that. And just tell them, here's how you're going to get treated. And more importantly, this is a 4 for 40 type of thing we talk about. You give us 4 years, we're going to set you up for the next 40. And we're going to have relationships. I'm going to be at your wedding. All these things. If that's something you're interested in, we'd love to have you. If it's not, then you got to look somewhere else. I kind of laugh, you know, and I'm not a negative recruiter at all. I think all schools are great and they all have their great niche. And so I tell people this. Let's say you walked into a job interview and your degree said Augsburg, Bethel, St. John's, Stout, River Falls, Whitewater. Do you think someone's going to give you that job because of what your degree says? Absolutely not. They're going to give you that job because of the person you are, the connections you've made, and the brand that you've created, right? Now, if your degree says Harvard, okay, that's a different story, right? That's just a whole new level. But my point is all these schools have great business schools, and just don't tell me that your business school is better than mine or mine's better than yours. I'm not going to buy that, right? We're all great schools, and that's what I kind of tell these young men. And you got to make a decision. You know, what's important to you? You know, and I said location to me is one of the biggest ones. You know, do you want to be 7 hours away? Do you want to be an hour away? You know, what's important? Do you want your parents to drive 7 hours to watch you sit on the bench your freshman year and then get a hotel and then turn around and drive 7 hours back? I don't want to do that. You know, so that's part of the thing that you got to look at. What's important to you is location. You know, I think everybody says, I want to get away from home. Oh, do you really? Yeah, you sure about that?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's going to happen when you're in my recruiting thing. You know, I got ADD, I'm hyper, I'm fun. I drink probably too many Mountain Dews, but I'm going to treat you right, and I'm going to give you a great experience. I can promise you that.
Now, Coach, when you're talking about Minnesota football, you have an interesting perspective because, you know, you grew up, you played in it, you coached in it, both at the high school and the collegiate level. Talk to us a little bit. You know, I'm a guy from Western Pennsylvania. Explain to me Minnesota football, because we had Coach Fashing on, and he told us how in his time, how Minnesota football has kind of every year it's gotten better and better and better. What is it about Minnesota football that's getting so talented?
Well, I would just say it's a little part of the Minnesota's getting a little more talented is there's a lot more training, right? These kids are doing full season training where, no offense, the kid in Texas started doing this 25 years ago. The kid in Ohio did the same, you know, and now we've kind of caught up a little bit. We're starting to do that. We've got all these domes. We've got all these facilities that these kids can work all year round on some things. So I think that's part of it, and that's created a little bit more of a playing field with the country. Don't get me wrong. There's still way more Division I athletes in Texas than there are here in Minnesota, okay? You know, I'm not ever questioning that, and there never will be. Just trust me. But, yeah, I think we've got better because of that. You know, and also, you know, Minnesota football is really evolved with the times. You know, we've got a lot of spread offenses. We've got a lot of RPO offenses. It's not just wing T handed off. We have those too in high school, right? There's successful teams that run that. It's a great offense for high school. I always ask, why does nobody run it in college? Because defenses are too good. You can't do that, you know, blah, blah, blah. But long story short, we've got some really good variety and some really good high school coaches that I could probably say are just as good as some of the college coaches because of the time they've put in. Like, and I always tell this to people like, well, why is the Vikings coaches or the Pittsburgh Steelers coaches so good? Listen, I've sat down with those guys, okay? It's just the career path that they've taken. Yeah. They're not going to know any more X's and O's than the best high school coach in Pennsylvania or the best high school coach in Minnesota. They've taken that path. You know, some of them decided to go to college and be transferred to 7 different states in 7 years and then hook on with the right guy. And next thing you know, here you are. Are they good coaches? Yes, they are. Don't get me wrong. But I would take a best high school coach up against an NFL assistant any day, just in any type of situation with dealing with kids, right? So that's kind of my philosophy on coaching and things like that.
And then if I'm right, so you guys are recruiting against majority of it's D3 schools and D1 schools. There is no D2 in Minnesota.
So Minnesota is different. We got a big contingency of Division II schools. I think there's 8 or 9 in division, which is really tough because you got to understand Division II, there's 30 full scholarships roughly for 125 kids, and they can chop those up. They could say, here you go, Carl, you get $500 for your books. You get $1,000. And now you call grandma up and say, what? I got a scholarship. Okay, good job. Right. Meanwhile, we'll give you $4,000 if you get your early Augie application in. So it's apples to oranges sometimes. And so kids got to look past that, where we have 2 Division I schools in Minnesota now with St. Thomas going Division I, but they're non-scholarship still, just in football. Everything else is full scholarship. And so Division I, they have to give you a full ride. They can't chop it up, or a PWO, preferred walk-on. So that's a little bit of the difference there.
Coach, how has the transfer portal, has it trickled down to Division III? Do you see, are you guys checking that a lot often, or is it not as important to you in that category?
Well, I got to be honest. I don't enjoy the transfer portal for my purposes, because I want a kid that wants to be here for 4 years, right? Now, is there a quarterback once in a while that we'll look at? You bet. I'm not going to lie to you. All of us do, right? But I want a kid that wants to be here for 4 years. And one of the things I find very comical is some of our kids have left, in every school. They put themselves in the portal. Well, you're not going to find a scholarship from Division III unless you're 6'5", 340 pounds. Okay, so quit being goofy and understand. If you really want to transfer from a Division III to a Division III, don't waste your time in the portal. Yeah. All right. Because those are all guys looking, we're going to give you rides, and none of our guys are going to get that. Right. So go to another school and ask them about what's their engineering program about. Do you want to be at that school? Hey, I'd like to try to play football. Do you have a roster spot for me? So to answer your question, portal, if you're living in the portal, you got some problems. I'm just going to tell you right now, there's no doubt about it, because 90% of those kids in the portal, why are they in the portal? Right.
Because they didn't like where they were in the first place.
There's some legitimate cases. Right.
But they didn't like where they were in the first place.
Well, there you go. Right. So what's going to make you like the next place? Right. So I think it's really a tough mark on you when you're in the portal. But that's each to their own. Everybody has the right decision. Now, there are some cases where somebody didn't feel safe, or they didn't, feel like this. Okay. I have no problems with that. That's go in the portal and do your thing. But understand, most of the coaches think the way I do, and it's not your favorite place to be looking to build your team. Division III. Division I, hey, that's a different animal, right? If they need to build their team with that, you can barely make a mark sometimes. Yeah. And so that more power to them.
Now, let's talk a little bit. We're in the playoffs now. We're sitting here going into week 2, the Sweet 16. And I hinted that there was a little bit of controversy last Sunday when the picks came out and who got in, who didn't get in. I believe Co got in. I think most people thought that position was going to go to MAIC St. John's. Strength of schedule goes into that. What are you looking at when they talk about the expansion of the playoffs, more at large bids? Is that something that you are pro? Do you want to see the expansion of the playoff system? Would you rather see an expansion of like the regular season? How does that factor in with you guys?
Yeah, let's expand the playoffs. Why not? Let's get more top teams playing and see what goes on. To be honest, those top teams are probably going to advance if you're that good anyways. So one more game against an opponent be good for everybody. So I'd love to see them expand. I just don't see a negative reason to expand, like unless you're a purist and this is the number we have. Well, tell me what the NCAA basketball tournament's gone to now, right? They're expanding. All right, we got the play-ins, we got this. So let's do it. Let's expand and kind of go from there. To your point on St. John's not getting in, yeah, I would really like to see them get in. That was a tough one for everybody to swallow. They play a tough schedule. Look at their non-conference schedule, right? They had Whitewater, they had Trinity, I believe. They beat Trinity. What people don't realize, and I don't know if the committee looks at this, that game was tied going to the fourth quarter with Whitewater. Now, Whitewater took them at the end, but that Whitewater's a top 3 team in America, right? Yeah. So my point is I think you got to look at the strength of schedule. If St. John's would have played nobody in the, not nobody, but teams that aren't that great in the non-conference, okay, get them out.
Mhm.
But they played some great teams, right? And I think what came down to it in the end is, we had beat Gustavus. Gustavus beat them. Stout beat Gustavus. And
Okay.
Stout finished middle to bottom of the Wisconsin Conference. And so I think that was a little of the deduction going through. But who knows who's hurt, who's playing at what time, blah, blah, blah. So I just think St. John's had earned that. Now, St. John's the last few years have not done great in the playoffs.
Mhm.
And I think that was something that went into it. Now, before that, St. John's has gone all the way, right? So I think it's a little bit of a toss-up. Yeah. And last year, Bethel from our conference went pretty far too. So yeah, it's tough. Now, I will be honest, the WEAC, the Wisconsin Conference, top teams are usually just a tad stronger than ours right now. And that's the facts.
Mhm.
Okay. But top to bottom, we're pretty good and can battle with those guys and things like that. So,
Well, and that's kind of the two, right? They're the two big conferences in the Midwest are the you guys and then the WEAC over there of all the UW schools. Coach, what's the message going into 2024? I know it's very early. We're getting ready to go into the Christmas break time and then into spring ball. But what's your message right now for 2024?
well, first of all, we tried to up our schedule in the non-conference. We're playing Valley City State, who is a scholarship school, week 1. And we're trying to get some non-conference games to see if we can bolster our schedule a little bit and go from there. And so I think that's our message to our kids. Hey, we want to be in that top group. Now, like anybody else, you better lift all off season. You better put your time in. It better be important to you. And so I think that's something about the message. But also our big message this off season is trust.
Mhm.
Like, listen, if I can't trust you to go lift, get your grades done correct, and do the right things off the field, I'm certainly not going to trust you at 1:00 on Saturday. Okay. And so trust is what we're talking with everybody all the time. And really, was that a trust decision? Is that a great decision to stay out that late? I don't know, things like that. So also competition, right? When you coach a team that doesn't have a lot of depth, that's really hard to coach.
Yeah.
Because now you're like fighting to figure out who can play, and a kid does something wrong, but you think you should play him because you don't have anybody else behind them. Those are the tough decisions. So when I didn't have any depth, that was hard to coach. And I did that for a lot of years, and even the last few years at Augsburg. But when you get some depth, that's pretty simple. Discipline by depth. You're out, you're in.
Mhm.
Done. So that's where you become really good. And so we need to grow our depth. And I think that's a part of our offseason plan too.
All right, Coach. So this is I kind of my favorite part of the show. It's 5 questions, has nothing to do with football. It's just about you. All right. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
I would probably live halftime in Cross Lake, Minnesota, which is up by all these lakes and an awesome part, about 3 hours north of where I live. It's gorgeous all summer with lakes and trees, and I love to be up in that area. The other half of the year, when it gets real cold, I'd like to go to Marco Island. We spend some time in Florida, and Marco is my spot. We're going down there again for a week and a half this offseason in spring break. So there's my 2 spots.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Coach. I'm real jealous. I'm a big fan of Marco and Naples were my 2 places. So, what's the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
Jeez. I just think treating people right. You just have to. It's always going to come full circle. Whenever I did something that was kind of off the rails or a little bit being a jerk, it always came back to bite me. And so I'm trying to treat people as right, as good as I can all the time, but also being honest with them, right? You can't tell a kid, hey, you know what, you might play, no, you're not going to play. You're our 4th string corner. If this doesn't work out for you, we get that, but you're the 4th string corner. And so being honest with these kids has really helped also.
If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
Oh, wow. What would I be doing? I'd probably be in real estate, or maybe, my dad's a metal recycler. He's his own boss. And I kind of like, driving, doing what you want to do instead of reporting to somebody.
Yeah.
So those 2 things.
All right. So this is a 2-parter. Best compliment you've ever received?
The best compliment I receive is when I see my players come back with their families and they tell me something that they learned when they played for me. Like, I remember that you said, treat this person right, or treat the janitor the way you treat the president of the college. Like when they say that stuff to me, then I know that they're remembering and I've sunk into some good things, but then they're transferring that to their daily lives and becoming successful members of the community. So that is the biggest compliment I can get when I see those players and kind of go from there. And then I have two daughters. When they say the same thing once in a while, that makes me feel good too.
Well, then on the other side of compliments, what's the best insult you've ever received?
Oh, we're playing at St. John's my first year, and their fans are great. They got, they average 10, 15,000 a game, and we're down 34-zip at half, right? And I'm walking off right in front of the fans, and a couple of the fans turn and yell, "Hey, coach, give them the shock the world speech. You still got a shot," right? And so I was just like, all I could do is laugh and point. I'm like, all right, I got that one.
That was good. You got me on that one.
You got me, right? Like, you can't, like, I know these people that get mad at the fans. I just laugh with them and have fun because they got some funny stuff. Normally I never hear anything, but I just caught me in the corner and I was walking off, and these two kids were just, man, it was really good.
And then how I've wrapped up every show, was there a question you were expecting me to ask you? And if so, how would you have answered it?
Jeez. I really didn't. I've done a few interviews, so there wasn't much I wasn't expecting. And so maybe you were going to ask me something about my favorite coach, Mike Tomlin from Pennsylvania. So I don't know if you love the Steelers or not, but I'm a Steeler fan through and through. And I would have said, would I like their offense to be a little more, how do I say, creative? Yeah, I think we got to pick the pace up there a little bit. And, Tomlin's a phenomenal coach, my favorite coach I've ever watched. And I'd like to see the Steelers turn it up a notch.
Well, Coach, I'm not asking you to leave Augsburg, but I'm pretty sure that team on the North Shore could use an offensive coordinator. So, I could drive up there for you. I'll pack Matt Canada's bags, and we could exchange. And
hey, I got a quick question for you about the Steelers a little bit here, Fest. Is it true that they do like a high school night during the fall during their camp? Because what I've seen is that they pick an area high school and they go into a scrimmage there every year. Do the high schools change that they pick?
No, so they do their practices for camp out at St. Vincent College, and then one night out of that camp, they'll go down to, it's about 20 minutes down the road, they go to Latrobe High School, and they bring in the 6 communities that are all around Latrobe, and everybody works it, and it's more or less the fans get to see you under the lights for that 3 hours as opposed to the daylight practices that they do out at St. Vincent.
That's a cool idea.
And Latrobe Stadium's real interesting because it's got that old school high school feel on the one side where it's just the short kind of visitors bleachers. And then their home side is you go in under the bleachers to go to their locker room. So a lot of them guys, they're coming out of the locker room and there's 50,000 people before they can even get to the field.
Wow.
And then Latrobe, being at St. Vincent for camp, it's a completely different thing too, because when they come out of the locker room, there's people from the time they walk out of the locker room, and there's a tunnel all the way down to the field. And I got to say, maybe a half a mile, a quarter of a mile. It's a pretty long distance that they walk from where the locker room is down to the practice fields. And before practice, after practice, them guys are out there hour and a half, 2 hours after, signing autographs, going up and down the line. Cause it's kind of like, for us kids in Pittsburgh, that's a rite of passage. If you didn't go to training camp, you didn't have a good summer. Like, you didn't make it out to Latrobe. You're struggling this year.
Wow. And I think you guys, I feel bad. I think you guys take for granted Mike Tomlin, man. He's just, the guy just wins. And he, like, if someone said, who do you want to meet and talk to for a while? I want to meet him. I just want to sit and talk to them. Like, give me a couple things. What do you do? How do these guys always play so hard for you all the time? Right. And just the things he does, like, okay, no offense, but Antonio Brown, do you think Antonio Brown had problems before? Yeah, they did, but Tomlin handled them, right? He did a great job of that. And after a while, I think he just couldn't do it anymore. But long story short, the guy is just, I don't know, he's lights out in my book. Favorite guy.
Well, and I've had this conversation with a couple of people. One, Steeler fans, we were spoiled in the fact that we've only had 3 head coaches. So there's only 3 guys you can get mad at. You're either mad at Chuck Noll, you're mad at Bill Cowher, or you're now mad at Mike Tomlin. That's it. So for those years, those are the guys that got to take the brunt of it. The other thing that I think as a Steeler fan, I coached myself out of it was when 7 retired, People forgot back in the day, the Bubby Bristers, the Mike Tomczaks, the Neil O'Donnell and Cordell Stewart when he was maybe a receiver, but we're going to try to put him over here. And then we bring Tommy Maddox in. People forget that we were happy to make the playoffs at that point. Like, Tommy Maddox took the Steelers to an AFC championship game against this guy named Tom Brady and the Patriots. And that's the beginning of the Patriots dynasty. But then we get the guy that's a franchise quarterback that we've seen. How many quarterbacks have gone through Cleveland? How many quarterbacks have gone through Cincinnati? Flacco and Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. But before that, I think Vinny Testaverde at one point was a quarterback for Baltimore. So these other teams have had these struggles where that position is what it is. And you weren't going to go out and draft a Ben Roethlisberger because he got drafted by Buffalo 3 years earlier. And that's the guy, my personal opinion, Josh Allen's the closest quarterback right now that you get to a Ben Roethlisberger type. But I agree. I think that Steeler fans are spoiled. Penguin fans are spoiled. Pirate fans, we get it. We're bad. We know we're bad. We're happy 79 wins and we're on the up. So.
Oh man, this is awesome. Well,
but Coach, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to sit with us. Right after this, we're going to send it over to Serenity Brown over there at Overtime. And I believe we still got games to pick. For those of you that watched us, please leave a like, tell Coach that you watched us, let us know so that we can keep this stuff going. But again, Coach, good luck this year in 2024. And thank you very much for taking the time.
this is awesome. Thanks for having me. And if you want to check in next year, we'd love to talk some more football and hopefully the Steelers make the playoffs.
No problem there. I'll definitely have you back.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Overtime with Serenity Brown. That's her. We're here. We made it to the finals. You were a little enthralled and also not really paying attention to the North Central Wartburg game. And so she come home. It was 20 to 6. Did you get home before before Wartburg scored?
Yes.
And then Wartburg just kind of plugged away, and then all of a sudden she looked up
and they're tied.
North Central did end up getting the win in that game. Probably, if the week prior for Wartburg wasn't a Game of the Year nomination, at the way they beat Whitewater, North Central, they gave North Central every bit of what the defending champs could handle. But once again, they're the defending champs, and they will take their place in Salem on Friday at 7 p.m. The other game is the game we really want to talk about.
I'd really like to personally apologize to Cortland because I feel like y'all have just something against us, apparently.
Coach Fitzpatrick and I have had conversations about having him on the show. Didn't work out, and maybe...
I'm trying not to cuss.
Because it's
y'all
a family...
screwed me!
It's a family-friendly show. We're trying to help out here. We've had to edit before because sometimes we slip and then somebody hears the slip.
I have a potty mouth.
Oh yeah, and I'm Mother Teresa. But so let's get into the Cortland game. Cortland Randolph-Macon. First off, the Red Dragons seem very comfortable. Foreshadowing in Virginia. Ashland, Virginia, to be exact, is where they were against Randolph-Macon, and they came out from the opening kickoff and really just dominated the game. I think, judging by the way the game was called, and some of the things I was seeing and the conversations I was having on Twitter during the game, no disrespect to Cortland, but I don't think anybody saw it. 2 weeks ago, they only beat Grove City by a point, which now the conversation is, where does Grove City fall ranking-wise? Because, I mean, they took at least one of the finalists to the Bear, and honestly, a field goal. Grove City's the red team going to Alma and then to Randolph-Macon. I'm going to kind of clarify where my thought was with Cortland. I thought they spent it, for lack of a better word. I thought they spent it on the week prior at Alma. I did not think that they were going to be able to go.
Do it again.
Not so much. I didn't pick them, obviously, but
No, none of us did.
it was like 7 or 8 drives in that Alma game where they just kept scoring. And then their defense finally got a stop, and it was kind of like, okay, the floodgates are open, let's go. I didn't think that they were going to then roll in on the road again and do the same exact thing. And at one point, it was like 8 of 9, and the 9th drive that they missed on scoring, they missed a field goal. So they really could have scored on every one of their opportunities. Now, that was early. It was when I was giving you the texts of, the updates of the score as it was coming in. But North Central, Cortland. I'm riding with North Central. I know DB's riding with North Central. I know you're riding with North Central. I'm pretty sure Sal's riding with North Central. My reasoning is the same. North Central's the champs until they get beat. I don't think Cortland can put together 12 straight quarters of lights out dominant football against, so the 4 extra, because they played 4 against Alma, 4 against Randolph-Macon, and then, it's been damn near perfect football for the Red Dragons of Cortland. I just don't think you do that against Coach Spencer and the Cardinals of North Central. I think that the last 2 weeks were kind of an eye-opener. For anybody that wanted to say lacrosse was the national championship, well, joke's on you, because last week was an even better game from a better opponent, I think, in Wartburg. Do you think there's any lapse that comes in from North Central? My question to you, do you think North Central looks and says, well, we just played the 2 of the hardest guys that we would have to play. This should be a game. Or do you think North Central goes out and says, hey, we are the national champs?
For our picks' sake, I'm saying that North Central from beginning to end better not be cocky. Play the way they're supposed to.
That being said, it's been an amazing run for Cortland. And I already did this on the Facebook or on the Twitter page, but I will say it again. I did not pick Cortland.
Kudos to you.
Actually,
guys.
I don't think I picked Cortland 3 weeks. I don't think I was the one that I was the lone loss in the Grove City game. So I have not been on the Red Dragon train. I just, they are I don't think they're a surprise either. I think from what I'm reading, there are a lot of people that know Coach Fitzpatrick that are saying it was a matter of time before this team got there. So, obviously, for those of you, this show comes out Thursday, 10 a.m. That's when you're watching it or listening to it.
We hope.
Friday, if you don't want to listen to me, you should check out the national championship game, 7 p.m. It'll be on ESPN. This is that cool thing for D3. The Army-Navy game was last Saturday. There's a little lull in football, but there's not, because here we come. Division III football is gonna fill that void. And then we have an interesting 2 weeks. We got to factor in our ugly sweaters. Have you been prepping your ugly sweater? I have one. They're not ready. They are not ready for the ugliness of this sweater that I have. And then our New Year's episode, and then like I said on last week's episode, we will take a month break from the coaches. The editor over here will be putting out different videos throughout that month. I think we're still going to get 4, but they'll be smaller clips. It'll probably be 15 minutes max, I'm thinking. Depending. I don't know. You're in charge of that. So if you've been with us from the beginning of this season, appreciate you. We only got 2 more weeks left. And then we're hoping you're back for season 4 and the rest of the coaches the next set of coaches that we're going to interview. You got anything?
I don't think so.
Go North Central.
Go North Central.
I just want to point out to our North Central people on Twitter, too. I have not once faltered. So don't be attacking me when I'm saying that maybe North Central put some things on film, like running to the left side because Wartburg did it for 3.5 quarters. I'm sure that those coaches are looking at that on film and saying, hey, we need to shore up the left side. That's what I'm saying. I have been in North Central's corner. I'm staying in North Central. We're all about that red. So with that being said, cheers, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.